And Pascal Zachery is with us. Pascal Zachery. He's a journalist, author, teacher, formerly Wall Street Journal senior writer, 1989 to 2001, authored the New York Times Ping column, a member of the board of the editors of In These Times, author of several books, including Endless Frontier, the website inthesetimes.com. Pascal, welcome to the show.
Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
So pleased to have you here with us. The article that you wrote for In These Times, the November 2009 issue, which begins on page 15 here, titled "Get Out Now: The Case for an Immediate Withdrawal from Afghanistan," is, I think, one of the most cogent and brilliant and articulate summaries of the situation that we face there and our options and how those options can be achieved that I've read anywhere. And I want you to share that with our listeners, please. Well, if I may, very, very quickly.
Keep going, sure.
Yeah, just give you a little bit of background. We heard first from a fellow from the Heritage Foundation who made the argument that if we allow Afghanistan to fall to the Taliban, in quotes, that they will then allow al-Qaeda to have training camps, and that will mean another 9/11 in America. I'm putting words in his mouth, but I think that that's probably a not unreasonable summary. Then we spoke with Gareth Porter, who had a very nuanced perspective. He talked about the difference between the Tajiks and the Pashtuns and the battle between the two, and the fact that we're completely ignoring the fact that Afghanistan itself is on the edge of a civil war, and we're putting the wrong people in charge of the wrong people, as it were. It would be almost like Canada coming in during the U.S. Civil War and saying, we're going to take over. Robert E. Lee is going to be in charge of New York City. Although, again, I'm putting words in his mouth. That's not how he said it, but it's that kind of thing. You take it a step beyond either one of these. Frankly, I don't want to call them both simplistic, but either of these perspectives, and say that actually there is a way to get out of Afghanistan, and we've already, to a large extent, done that in Iraq. End of my rant. Your turn.
No. Well, thanks a lot for having me on. Porter's position is very, very important because it's a reminder that Afghanistan's a complex society that we describe as a monolith, but of course it's not. It's a very nuanced and difficult situation. The domino theory, I think, is part of the fear-mongering. We've been dealing with high levels of insecurity in international relations for a long time, and that insecurity isn't going away. Obviously, when you have a nuclear country like Pakistan teetering on the verge of some major change, when you have Iran, when you have North Korea, also countries that are very aggressive, and you have no real response, you naturally have a lot of insecurity. My point in Afghanistan is not that we should give up, but that there's a number of tools that the new president isn't using. One is diplomacy. Yeah. Why have we not at least tried to engage the Taliban in negotiations?
How do you know we're not in back channels?
Well, I think that the lack of public ownership of the diplomacy is really a sign that even if there is a back channel, it's not a meaningful one. Yeah. I think the reality is that the Taliban knows it doesn't need to negotiate with the U.S.
Well, they already control over half the country now, don't they?
Yeah, they have the upper hand. The second thing is that the president is resorting to force, or as he said glibly the other day, he wants to, quote, finish the job. Now, this is a tragic situation of him channeling Ronald Reagan, who I think is in many ways his biggest role model. I think he sees the war as a way to solidify his political base in the United States, that the war is a litmus test for him, and it's a defining experience for him to be presidential, to be American.
You mean
to finally silence?
With regard to Reagan, are you talking about like with Panama and Grenada?
I think that Obama is another feel-good president like President Reagan.
I see.
He's just a feel-good president with a progeny on the left. But he essentially is trying to say to Americans, don't worry, we'll move ahead. So the other thing I try to argue in this article is path dependence, that President Bush left the United States on a course that's very difficult to deviate radically from, and Obama is essentially 6 degrees of separation from Bush in his international policies. He's inherited a bloated Defense Department. He's sanctioned their high levels of spending in the $600-700 billion a year levels, but that doesn't include fighting a war.
Right.
I mean, we need a Pentagon that actually can fight a war, that doesn't say, well, that $600-700 billion just gets you the team. If you want us to play some games, you got to pay us extra. And what did Mullen say? I need $1 billion a year for 1,000 troops on the ground. This is extortion. We need a Pentagon that's ready to fight when needed, not ready to negotiate and extort from the American taxpayer.
And let me take it a step. Let me take it a step beyond that. When Harry Truman was president and the war was going on in South Korea, advisedly or inadvisedly, Doug MacArthur, General MacArthur, who was largely in charge of that, was running around saying to the press, "We need to go into China. We need to push farther to the north." Harry Truman said to him, basically, "Sorry, buddy, I make the policy here, not you. You're fired." And Obama did not say that to McChrystal, and in my opinion, he should have.
That's a very good point, because McChrystal's plan was far too detailed. He shouldn't have been able to publicly lobby for the plan. Finally, the plan was some eerie throwback to the early 70s, Vietnamization, Afghanistanization.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it would be one thing if there was a reasonable hope that the so-called Afghan government could take over the fight. But even since Obama's become president, he's received a lesson in the realities of Afghanistan. $1 billion spent on an election, and then the election proves just folly.
Right. Yeah. We're talking with Pascal Zachery. Pascal Zachery, his new article in the current issue of In These Times, "Get Out Now: The Case for an Immediate Withdrawal from Afghanistan." Pascal, inthesetimes.com, of course, the website. Pascal, in short form, what if you were President Obama? What would you do?
I think you've got to accept that the Taliban in some form are going to be part of the Afghan government. That's first. Second, you have to accept that fighting terrorists who are planning to attack the United States or its citizens abroad is a one-off by one-off process, like the attack in Somalia recently, where 2 helicopter gunboats killed someone involved in the Kenya-Tanzania bombings of 10 years ago. That's the way you can contain these terrorist
You're saying
threats.
you do it like CIA wet ops, old-fashioned stuff.
Yeah, I think that Joe Biden and Leon Panetta seem very capable. Panetta, the head of CIA.
Right.
These are capable Democrats who are not afraid to be branded killers.
Yeah.
You know, we just found out in the news this morning that Rumsfeld and Tommy Franks wouldn't move on bin Laden when they had the chance.
Right.
Yeah, the Republicans were not killers. The Democrats are.
Well, I think that's because they needed Obama to stay at large, because if they didn't have him at large, they wouldn't have a Super George wouldn't have Lex Luthor, and he needed a Lex Luthor.
It is convenient that he was out there during the presidency.
Yeah, I think it was necessary for him.
Well, my hope remains that Bush and bin Laden could spend their elderly days in a prison cell together, talking about this wonderful decade that's ending.
There you go. Assuming bin Laden's still alive.
Yeah, Obama has many more options, and I think that he's escalating when the rational course is to de-escalate and to try to reduce the footprint. There's an equal possibility that the presence of American troops in the region in an occupying fashion is destabilizing Pakistan. So for those who argue that it's helping Pakistan, well, you can argue equally that it isn't.
Yeah, and which brings me to the final point. We're talking with Pascal Zachery, who wrote a brilliant piece in These Times magazine, inthesetimes.com. Get Out Now: The Case for an Immediate Withdrawal from Afghanistan. And Pascal, we have just a minute to the break here. A quickie. Fareed Zakaria wrote a piece in Newsweek this week saying everybody's got it wrong. India is the prize. India, for a long time, has been a helpmate to Afghanistan, providing infrastructure, schools, and things like that. They're a buffer against Pakistan. That what we're doing by having a war in Afghanistan and drawing Pakistan into it is against the interests of India, and it's going to blow up in our face. What do you think?
Very interesting perspective, and I think it just highlights the perils of getting bogged down in a land war with lots of troops, with an enemy that is very difficult to circumscribe and defeat, and that the opportunities for a more regional approach, using public diplomacy, using what's best in American character, would serve the nation much better.
Yeah, this is, after all, India's subcontinent. I mean, this is their region.
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, you're absolutely right.
And they get it. You win more hearts by building a school than you do by dropping a bomb on a town.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for dropping by.
It's a moment on the verge of Obama's speech to escalate, so I really appreciate being joined in the debate.
Thank you. Pascal Zachery, InTheseTimes.com, the website, the article. Get out now. Check it out.